Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Midweek Update here on Rasslin with Redbeard. This is a show where I get to come to you guys and continue the conversation in between our main show. Gives me a chance to catch up with you guys on the events that have been happening the past couple days in and around the world of professional wrestling. Been a lot going on, a lot of big news, so we're going to try and get through this as quickly as we can. Try and keep these shows about 15 minutes or less if possible, but we're going to be cutting it tight here because there's a lot to go through in this particular program. I want to start off by talking about the big news of the week, that of course being the announcement and the actual return of the Undertaker to WWE. He's been gone since WrestleMania, where he had, at that point in time, defeated Bray Wyatt in a match. Hadn't been seen on TV since then. Then suddenly in the past couple days here, he's been seemingly everywhere. He returned during the Battleground pay-per-view, during the main event thereof, and inserted himself immediately into a feud with Brock Lesnar. The interesting thing about that is, of course, that Lesnar was the man who ended Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania. He's apparently now taking revenge on Brock Lesnar for that particular maneuver, but the interesting part about it is that that's been more than a year since that turn of events happened there. So he's waited a good long while to let Brock stew about things, and he even mentioned on Raw during his monologue there, if you want to call it that, that it had been a long time, but that it had been because of the fact that he and Heyman had kind of rubbed it in his face there for a period of time, that he was returning to get revenge. So we'll see where that goes. It's kind of a vacuous storyline, but that's not anything new for wrestling. The potentially more interesting news that's come out the past couple of days in regard to returns, in my opinion, is not only his return, but the combination that there's news out there about Sting coming back at some point in time here, probably around SummerSlam. The going rumor is that he's going to be teaming with Roman Reigns to take on the Wyatt family of Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper. I think that's interesting in the grand scheme of things here, because you've got Undertaker returning as kind of this vengeful spirit, but yet you've had WWE who has promoted Sting as this vigilante type of character. So in my mind, playing fantasy booker, that's one of those things where you could say, all right, well, you got one character who is definitely this kind of dark, brooding, vengeful individual, then you've got this other sort of thing that plays in the old Crow gimmick about him being this spirit of vengeance type thing. And there's a couple of different organic ties that they could do in order to make that a pretty interesting feud if they wanted to go for a Sting versus Undertaker match. That's been the rumor forever that it was going to be WrestleMania 32, that they were going to finally have an encounter and this, that, and the other. We'll see if it happens. It may or may not. Who knows? But I thought it was going to be an interesting potential for the two of them to have an encounter there anyway, and this was a natural segue, in my opinion, for them to actually do that. So we'll see what happens with that there. Other big news in regard to some folks who are going to be not necessarily returning to WWE, but making a debut for the company. Jushin Thunder Liger has been announced to be taking part in the NXT TakeOver event that will be happening before SummerSlam. This is going to be in Brooklyn, New York. It's happening August 22nd up there. This is another big thing because of the fact that Liger, despite the fact that he's had an innovative career that spanned generations, he's never worked for WWE. He was the WCW Cruiserweight Champion, had a good feud with Brian Pillman over that particular title, but he's never been with WWE. And he's going to be making his debut in a match with one of the best they've got in NXT, that being Tyler Breeze. So, as if NXT couldn't get more interesting, here you go with one more big thing there, and Jushin Thunder Liger appearing for them. There was some comments in regard to whether or not this might be a bit of a swipe at Ring of Honor because of the fact that they're having an event that same night, also in Brooklyn, New York, where New Japan wrestling talent had also been booked for them as well. I believe Shinsuke Nakamura, Okada, and I think Kushida were all booked for that particular event for Ring of Honor. So you've got some competitive juices flowing there between the two companies, and a definite desire on both of them to try and outdo one another in terms of the New York market there. So we'll have to see what happens in regard to those two events. I think they'll both sell out. I think they'll both do quite well in that particular market with those cards. But just the combination of New Japan sending some talent to Ring of Honor and this one talent to WWE was a pretty interesting turn of events, in my opinion. There's been a lot of talk about ROH and WWE competing for certain things. And it's really showing itself now with that turn of events. So looking forward to seeing all those shows and the results thereof. I think it'll be very interesting to see Liger in a WWE ring, in particular against someone like Tyler Breeze. Of course, we had the WWE Battleground pay-per-view this past weekend. I already mentioned that Undertaker did return during that show. The main event was something of a wash because of the fact that he did show up during the main event, and of course rendered that particular contest a no contest. So in regard to that, there you had kind of nothing happen, and that's really what it amounted to. There was nothing all that memorable on the show. It was just one of these transitionary things that it makes having the WWE Network a little more valuable, because as opposed to paying $60 for a pay-per-view, you only paid $9 for that one. So it makes sense to keep your to keep your WWE Network subscription for stuff like that, because you're not paying an arm and a leg for a show that didn't amount to much. But at the same time, it's one of those things where you wonder, well, could you not have just done that on SmackDown or Raw or something like that? There just wasn't a whole lot there. It wasn't a bad show, just in terms of advancing things, there just wasn't a whole lot there. Still, as it goes, that's the case for a lot of WWE pay-per-views. They have these sort of transitionary moments where things come in, they happen, and then they're gone, building to something like SummerSlam, where you'll have a much bigger presence, a much bigger presentation. So it is what it is. But the one piece of that particular pay-per-view that I will bring out again is, or not again, but I will highlight, is the fact that the Intercontinental title match had to be scrubbed because of the fact that Ryback is injured. Well, injured was the original headline that got floated around the internet. As WWE stated as much, that he had been injured in a segment on the Raw show from last week. Turned out that he's not so much injured as he is down with a staph infection. That, of course, is a little bit ironic, seeing as how he's had his little feud there with CM Punk. CM Punk, of course, is famous for as much as anything these days for the fact that he argued with WWE doctors about the fact that he had what amounted to be a very severe staph infection. And if what he said is accurate, they kept him on the road, kept him out there wrestling night after night just by giving him more and more antibiotics. Whereas with Ryback, seemingly as soon as he says he's got a problem, they pull him off the show, cancel a pay-per-view match, the whole 9 yards. It's another one of these things where if you believe one story versus another, you've got a situation where one guy's lying, one guy's telling the truth. This, in hindsight, makes, I think, Punk look like, he's telling the truth. And I've never really doubted him necessarily, but for one guy like him to have this story, to have some legitimate, I think, medical issues come about as a result of something like that, it just makes him look even more like he's in the right in terms of what he was doing there, and saying, you know what, if you guys aren't giving proper care, I'm gonna peace out. So more kudos to him, and just one of those things. It seemed like a little bit of pie in the face to WWE and their doctors and handling this situation. Ryback is okay. Trust me, I know staph is not a thing to mess around with, but just a kind of funny turn of events in one guy having something versus another guy. So, such is life. One more thing in regard to WWE TV we'll mention here, and I know we're starting to get into the bloat of this program, but still paying attention somewhat tough enough, and it's starting to get a little long in the tooth here as far as what they're doing with these kids. There was one competitor who quit the show. I think her name might have been Diana, but she did leave the program on her own volition. She decided she wanted to go home and spend time with her boyfriend, fiance, whatever he is. That's her own decision there, perfectly fine, but I wish she hadn't done that, because she wasted the time of a lot of people, and could have been a position for somebody who actually wanted to be on the show and wanted to compete. But regardless, WWE has chosen to insert someone else in the program. Her name is Chelsea Green. She actually is an independent wrestler. She's gone by the name Jada in the past. Not only that, she's also been on WWE TV before. She was on back in 2014 during a angle where Dana Bryan and Brie were on the rocks, so to speak, storyline-wise, and she was a character that came in to kind of be the third wheel in there. She was going to be the one who busted up their relationship. But that didn't work out, of course. Storyline went nowhere, and she subsequently was going off TV very quickly, because it was not a very good angle, truth be told. And the long story of it is, She's back though. She is back on TV. She's back on Tough Enough, and potential exists for her to be something of a ringer in this regard because, like I mentioned, she's got experience. She's been on TV. She trained with Lance Storm, so she's one of these types who's on the program more or less, I think, to cover the rear ends of the people involved with that show or in charge of that show, because it just really is a bit of a head scratcher, because you have this show that's promoted as an opportunity for people who want to be superstars, who want to be wrestlers, and then you got all these people who are trained wrestlers who are out there in the industry working weekends and whatnot, whenever they can, who submit their stuff, and then what happens? They go nowhere because WWE's got 2 or 3 people that they want to be in the program and that they've got kind of handpicked to excel. So here again, Tough Enough is what it is. It's a gimmick. If you believe anything other than that, I got a piece of land that I'll sell you that's under a bridge. But it is what it is. So we'll see where it goes in terms of that season there. But I've got 2 favorites who, if they don't win, I'll be shocked. Yeah, Tough Enough, folks. One more in the books. Moving on to an update in regard to Alberto Del Rio, Alberto El Patron, as he's now known. He was supposed to have been at an event that was an autism benefit here a couple of weeks ago, wound up no-showing the event. He came back on Twitter and said that the reason he was not there was for personal reasons. Didn't go on to explain why. He did put over the promotion that he was working with there. They apparently did everything that they could to have him there and to get him in a situation where he was going to be comfortable, but it just didn't work out for whatever reason. This is a story that I think got legs because of the fact that it was an autism benefit. If it had been just some random Joe Schmo show, it probably still would have gotten some type of headline, but it wouldn't have been something that got passed around the way it did. And I was hoping he had something that was, I don't want to say earth-shattering, but, in some way, shape, or form, life-altering come up that would have given him a legitimate reason to not be there. But, whatever. He chose not to attend for one reason or another. He said it's personal. More power to him. I guess, don't book Alberto if you want to have some sick kids around, because you might disappoint him. Another situation that he's somewhat related to is the fact that Lucha Underground is really hyping up the Ultima Lucha program they've got coming up on August 5th. It's going to be their version of WrestleMania. It's really the best analogy I can give you in terms of what they're doing with this particular show. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be something special, I believe. And it's going to be on the El Rey Network again, August 5th, 8 p.m. So be sure to tune into that if you're not already watching Lucha Underground. I would suggest you do that as well. It's Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. on the El Rey Network. It's pretty much the only show once a week that I look forward to tuning into in regard to wrestling. So definitely give it a shot if you're not already watching that program. More stuff in regard to some Lucha Underground type news. Hernandez, a guy who's been somewhat well known around TNA, been for bumping around through a couple different promotions. He, of course, has been involved with Lucha Underground here recently. He had been signed not too long ago to a new deal with TNA, and he had appeared on their most recent set of TV tapings. However, it's come to light that he was not contractually free yet when he appeared on those tapings. He's still signed to a deal with Lucha Underground. So that put TNA into a position where they had to essentially erase and otherwise edit a whole bunch of footage, because he was going to be involved with the Beatdown Clan, a stable that featured himself, MVP, and Kenny King. They can't use that footage now. So not only has he been released by TNA, you also now had MVP come along and say, well, as a result of that, I'm not going to be on TV, I'm not going to be making any appearances, so I'm going to leave too. So TNA has now lost MVP and Hernandez, 2 guys who are pretty well-known names, guys that they had been doing a lot with in the past. MVP had been the focal point of a number of angles here in the past year or two. It just continues to be a mess in TNA. Some of this is by their own creation, some of this is by things that they've encountered. It's just a mess. I don't know any other way to put it than that. And it's not getting any better for them, because the situation has changed here in the past 24 hours, or at least it's been made public knowledge here in the past 24 hours that they've also had to go to a situation, to go to a reconfiguration of their talent contracts. Talent contracts in wrestling are very weird things sometimes, but a lot of them are based around guaranteed money and also per appearance deals or per appearance pay. they had been going through and now changing their contracts to where the talent will only be paid per appearance. They won't get guarantees. So what that means is you have talent who in some cases were not being used on TV, who were still receiving a salary. Then you had guys who were getting on TV regularly and were also being paid per appearance. Well, now they're just going to be paid whenever they show up. So it's a smart deal financially speaking for TNA, but you've got talent who are going to say, well, you're not going to pay me what I think I'm worth or what I can get working for company X over here. So they're going to leave and go somewhere else. And you're going to have more talent that potentially is going to walk out the door because of the fact that this company is in, I hate to say it, they're looking like they're in dire straits. More and more writing on the wall just makes you think that TNA and Impact Wrestling won't be around that much longer. I hate that, but it just does not look good. So we'll see where it goes. Another kind of TNA related thing, I'll mention this before I go forward. TNA, the past couple of weeks here, they revealed that they had a new authority figure in charge of the show. This is one of those creative things that comes along. The authority figure wound up being Bully Ray. That's the only thing I can say in regard to that, because you suddenly have put a guy in charge of a company. Of course, kayfabe storyline, but you've put a guy in charge of a company who, at one point in time, was the leader of a biker gang who wanted to destroy the company and assaulted a number of individuals, including the owner of the company, Dixie Carter. How does this make sense to anybody? You know, people would say, "Oh, Vince Russo, are you writing this stuff?" or someone along those lines, but it's even worse than that. I've said before that wrestling, creatively speaking these days, seems to be written by people who think everyone has ADD because they expect you not to remember anything past 5 or 6 days ago. But yeah, they've put him in charge. I don't know where that's going to go. I really don't care, to be honest with you, because it doesn't make any sense. So it is what it is. Bully Ray's in charge of TNA now. Yeah, it's the best I got. Moving on to a little bit more news in regard to a guy who's been with TNA here for a little bit, Drew Galloway. Now, it used to be Drew McIntyre with WWE. Drew here in the past couple of Dragon Gate and Evolve shows has found himself a man without a country, so to speak. He was the holder of both the Dragon Gate and the Evolve titles, but he's no longer their champion. I think Timothy Thatcher is their champion now, but I know Trent Beretta may be involved in that circle of events there as well. But regardless, it's led some people to believe that because of his relationships with TNA and with Global Force Wrestling, and because of the fact that there's been some rumor that WWE could be tapping into Evolve and Dragon Gate for prospective talent, that he could be on the outs with them because of that. Of course, Drew Galloway was at one point in time Drew McIntyre in WWE. He had somewhat of an unceremonious departure from that company. Make of it what you will, but when you've got a guy who has been enjoying a nice run with the company and then suddenly, boom, he's gone, it's going to make people talk. It's going to make rumors pop out of nowhere. So we'll see what's going on with him there, but it just seemed kind of coincidental that one story pops up one week and then within a matter of days you've got a guy being put in a situation where he's no longer champion. So one more thing where we get to say, we'll see where it goes. It seems to be my favorite series of words, other than it's interesting or regardless or something like that. But we will see where it goes. It's definitely something we'll be paying attention to. A few more items here in regard to TV and whatnot. We've got Global Force Wrestling. They're going to be holding their first set of TV tapings coming up this week here, July 24th in Las Vegas from the Orleans Hotel and Casino out there. Going to be very, I think, cool to see what they have to do. It's been a long time coming. The only thing is, though, they're taping TV, but they still haven't announced what network they're going to be on, how it's going to be distributed, if it's going to be distributed at all. So it's something that's going to happen, but nobody knows what's going to happen to it once it's done. So we'll have to pay attention to that and see what they've got coming up. One company that does know where they're going with their product, though, is Combat Zone Wrestling. Combat Zone, you know, they've got the mythos of being blood and guts and all that stuff with the involvement in death matches that they do, the death match tournaments that they put on annually. But they've signed a pay-per-view distribution deal that's going to have them seen all over the world now. So kudos to them for getting that done. That's a big step forward for them. Anytime you can get more eyes on your product, it's always a good thing. That said, that's going to wrap up our news brief for the week. Whew, that was a lot to go through there. Like I said, it's been a busy week here. And now we want to move on into our segment where we talk about the local events that are coming up here this weekend. I think we've got 5 on tap. We're going to go ahead and show you those posters. Before we move on to that, though, I want to let you guys know that if you're a wrestler, promoter, or in some way involved in an organization that exists in this part of the world and you'd like your posters to be featured here on the show or on our Facebook page, let us know. Drop us a line. You can contact us through YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, any of those particular outlets and others, always available to you. So just shoot us your information and your poster. We'll be glad to feature it here. So we'll be back in a few moments to wrap up this edition of the program. Alright folks, there you have it, our rundown of the events that are going to be happening this weekend. We appreciate you guys tuning in. If you enjoy the program, make sure you hit that like button that's below this particular screen. Also, we are trying to advance this brand and do as much as we can with this particular channel. So if you would go ahead and subscribe to us as well, that'll let you know when we've published something new and keep you advised of when we've got some special stuff going on. Hoping to get to an event here in the next couple of days that'll give us another main show. Not sure yet where we're going to wind up. But we're hoping to get out there on the road again because it's been a while. That said, appreciate you guys tuning in once again. We'll see you down the road.